I'm Jim Knight, co-founder of the Instructional Coaching Group, and you're listening to Coaching Conversations, where I talk with coaching experts from around the world so that all of us can learn better ways to make an unmistakably positive impact on the people around us. Melanie Matthews Calhoun, I'm so excited to have you here. We've already shared our love of Detroit and Southern Ontario and pizza with pineapple on it. So we've got common bond already going, but I'm so excited to hear from you and have a chance to talk with you about instructional coaching and what you're going to do at TLC. So thank you for being a part of the podcast. I can't wait to learn from you.
Thanks for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. So excited to talk with you about TLC, your work in coaching. Maybe we could start, just say a little bit about how you got into coaching in the first place. I saw all the things you're doing now, but how did this all start?
So you hear people tell you, you should do this, you should do that, but never did I really personalize it, like, okay, whatever. So one day, my principal came to me when I was teaching second grade, and he asked if I would present at our after-school staff meeting. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. What do you want me to present? And he said, present how long teachers should give students for homework each night. How long should homework be each night for each grade level? K through 8. It was a K through 8 school. And I said, okay. So I did the after school staff meeting presentation. And then soon after, teachers started coming to me like, hey, what should I do about this? And do you have a resource for that? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I do. And so I became like the lead teacher unofficially. And from there, I went to present at a conference and my room was just packed. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe somebody is really trying to tell me something before somebody said, you should really do this. You should think about taking an instructional leadership position. So from there, we had all of these job openings, and lo and behold, there was a literacy coach position. So I said, okay, I'm going to try my hand in literacy coaching. That was in 2006. I have been living in this space in some way, shape, or form since 2006. So I got into coaching really because my peers urged me. They saw something in me that I didn't see. And then I finally listened to them. And this has been like my favorite place in all of education.
Well, mine too, for the record. What would you say? I know it's hard to sum this up, but what would you say are like 2 or 3 big things you've learned since 2006? Probably when you started, you thought coaching was going to be this, but now you think it's like that.
Yeah. So one of the things I've learned since I started was not to take things personally because, you will get, so you go into this thing like, I get to make a difference in another way. I get to impact students, a larger amount of students through teachers. And it's all roses and daisies and everything. And then you get in there and it's like, but what did I do to you? So it's really, you have to have tough skin. So one of the things I learned early on was to not take everything personally, because a lot of people's anxieties and fears come from something else. They may see you as a representative of the district, and therefore, whatever change perhaps the district has implemented, they see you as an immediate person who they can sound off to and tell and give you a little bit of their mind. So yeah, that's one of the things. It's not to take everything personally, just really listen and just know that a lot of the times it's not about you, it's about something else.
Well, I think that's a good life philosophy, not just a coaching philosophy, but I'm with you all the way. It's hard not to sometimes, but it doesn't do you much good to take it personally. Yeah. What's a coaching paradox or challenge, or what's something you see happening all the time that coaches are dealing with? And anything where you'd say this is a challenge, a paradox coaches often deal with.
So there are a few. One paradox that coaches deal with, and they may not even think that they're going to deal with this, is working in a building with an administrator who don't quite understand the role of an instructional coach. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they see you almost as a savior. Oh, we have this coach, and you're going to fix this teacher, and you're going to fix that teacher, not really understanding what we do, the misunderstanding of coaching. And so that's one thing that I've encountered many times over my career in coaching, and having gone into buildings where coaching had not yet been established, is super brand new. And the principal or the administrators are thinking, yeah, we have a miniature administrator here, and they can go in and they can fix these teachers. And so what I've found myself doing, because I encountered it one time, I was pretty sure I was going to run into it again, is that I started preparing things, expectations of a coach that I could share with principals. So my number one mission when I go into any new coaching situation, into a building, district, I make sure I sit with the head administrator first so that we can get an understanding of what I really do before I start doing the work. So that's one of the things that I'm like, no, I don't do that. Well, I'm going to give you a list of all of the teachers that need your support right now. And the kids are all going to be super duper high achievers. So just misunderstanding the role and the purpose of a coach.
Yeah, I would say we found there are two things that make a difference for coaches. One of them is who you hire, just like any job. Mm-hmm. If you hire somebody who's the right person for the position, has the talent to do it, that's important. But the second thing is that support that comes from the principal. And the principal can't support unless they know what the coach does. I mean, they have to be invested in making sure that they understand what the coach does, and support them. So you're saying you would show up with the principal and say, here's a handout or here's a piece of paper that describes what I do, and then go through it with the principal?
I will sit down and go through it with the principal. Of course, I ask if the principal has any questions, but I sit down and go through it with the principal, and then I ask the principal, would it be okay if I shared this with the staff during staff meeting, so that everyone would be on one accord? There's nothing like a misunderstanding of what you do. Because in so many situations, teachers see you as a quasi-administrator. They see you as an evaluator, and you have to make your role clear to them too. And I don't blame them if they don't know, because you don't know what you don't know until you encounter the situation. So yeah, sitting down, getting a meeting with that principal, sitting down in a meeting, not on the go, sit that principal down and talk about expectations, what you do and what you don't do, and your expectations from him or her, your expectations of the staff, and what they can expect from you too.
Very cool. I think that is a common and important paradox, and I like the way you're addressing it. What is a success story you've experienced in coaching, or you've seen happen in coaching?
Yes. So everyone isn't going to be open, but for those who are and are willing and want to improve, it's such a glorious experience to see them open up. So recently, my district has adopted disciplinary literacy. So disciplinary literacy, for those of you who might not know, are a set of literacy practices that are exclusive. They're not exclusive, but for 6th through 12th grade teachers to use. Much like we have the literacy standards, comprehension, fluency, and all of those things. It's like bumping it up, revving it up to another level. So it's for 6th through 12th grade. It's for everyone. It's disciplinary literacy. And so a lot of teachers get disciplinary literacy confused with teaching kids how to read. And it's not teaching kids how to read. It's teaching kids how to think like a computer scientist, how to think like a historian, how to think like an artist, and all of those things in between. So I was working with the implementation school-wide, district-wide, and the art teacher showed interest. And I'm like, okay, the art teacher, okay, I can roll with this. Let's go. And so she was really a little slow with getting her feet wet. But then all of a sudden she came to me and she said, could you help me? Can we plan a time where we can sit down and you can help me go through this disciplinary literacy thing? Because it seems really exciting and something my kids might like. And so that was like music to my ears. And so we sat down and we planned and we did everything pertaining to disciplinary literacy and arts. And I went back to her classroom, and coaches out there, if you can hear me, the excitement I am about to share. She was doing everything I asked her to do. So it was like, wow. And that was like one of those coaching moments because in our dream world, we would like for all teachers to be like that. But, it's not quite like that. So, and it was really exciting to me because she was not a core content area teacher. She's an art teacher, and she wanted to include disciplinary literacy in her classroom with her students, and they got it, and they loved it, and she loved it. And so that was like one of my phenomenal moments for coaching.
See, I think that what you're describing there is like a fundamental part of a living, like a fulfilling life. I think learning, growing, sharing, and it's a natural thing we do. We do it, but for all kinds of reasons, it kind of gets bogged down. I remember, you're probably too young to remember this, but I remember when we first got Netscape, and we hadn't had the internet, and now we had the internet. And so once it's the first person who showed me how to use Netscape, I just couldn't believe all the possibilities. Probably artificial intelligence is a bit like that now. And then I would show friends, and they'd be so grateful. They're like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what I could do because Jim showed me how to use Netscape." And I think that's the thing. When you can do that, when you have that idea of sharing, here's this really powerful thing that's going to make your life richer, or going to be, in terms of the classroom, either it'll make your life easier, or you'll reach more kids. People gobble it up and use it. That's a pretty rewarding and I think a fundamentally sort of life-giving kind of thing.
And especially when it's a district initiative, because so many times people are a little reluctant to change a little bit. And so it took her, a minute. It took her until, I think I worked with her in April. But once that happened, she was 100% on board, looking for other ideas and all of those great things coaches love to experience.
Right. Well, you want to feel like your life's making a difference. So that's your work is making a difference. So you're coming to TLC, your first trip to New Orleans.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful city. And it's in TLC. You haven't been to TLC?
I have not. So I did attend one time virtually in 2020.
It is a cool experience. Like there is a real sense of positive community there. And there are so many people who are like you. They're all coaches. They're dealing with the same kind of things. And when you're a coach, it's a kind of a lonely thing. But when you come together at TLC, there is this real positive, supportive. They're there because they're people, and they're there because they love to learn. And so, hopefully it'll be as it's been. But it's really kind of a fun thing. It's an uplifting thing to be a part of that community, because it is all about the community that develops. That's what happens there. And then people make lifelong friendships. They stay in contact. They come back. So I'm so glad you're coming in. If I've got the title right, your presentation is going to be How to Coach Teachers Who Don't Want to Be Coached. I think that's the title, or something close to that.
That is the title. Coaching Teachers Who Don't Want to Be Coached.
Well, I think everybody wants to know. So tell me, don't give away your whole presentation, but what are some of the things you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, because I want you to come. So first, I am going to talk about, let's start with the end in mind. Everybody wants to know how. How do I do it? So there are more than 45 strategies that you will walk away with when you attend the conference at TLC. So what teachers and participants will learn and discover during my session is how to work with those people that you think are 100% uncoachable. There are ways. It's just that we have to learn how to maneuver, how to navigate that terrain in order to get them to cross the line. In my time of coaching since 2006, I have found that there are really 3 basic types of resistance. And those types of resistance are aggressive resistance, where that they don't want to work with you. Reading between the lines, they're just going to tell you, no, not at this time, or I've been teaching for 43 years, hint, hint. So it's the aggressive resistance. Then you have the passive aggressive resistance, where it seems like they might be coming around, but there's some gaslighting in there, or they're slow to do something and they're not really implementing what you have planned to implement. And then you have the passive resistance, where you sit down and you plan and everything is a go. And then all of a sudden it's ghost. Nowhere to be found. There's no one there. They agree verbally, but they don't follow through. And so these 3 types of resistant teachers I think all of us have encountered in one point of our coaching careers. So I'm going to share with you different strategies you can use to kind of combat this kind of resistance.
So let's say let's do a little bit for each one. Is that okay? Can we talk
Yeah,
about each one?
let's go.
I love these categories. Aggressive, passive aggressive, passive. So
Yes.
aggressive, your principal does a workshop on coaching or introduce the idea of coaching in a school. And he says the coach is going to come around and meet everybody one-to-one. And so you sit down with the teacher and they say, how long is this going to take? I've got to get back to my teaching. And I really think there's really nothing you can teach me anyway. What could you possibly teach me that would be worth my time? So can we just get this over with quickly? So how do you deal with an aggressive resistor?
So with an aggressive resistor, what I would do in that conversation is say, okay, well, tell me what have you already done? So list out, we can write it down. You can tell me verbally and I'll write it. What have you already done? I know that you've done this before. And in a lot of cases, aggressive resistance come from mainly veteran teachers because they've been here for such a long time. They've seen initiatives come and go and come again. And so just tell me what you know. What have you done regarding this initiative and this implementation? That's great. Well, can I one day come into your classroom and see how that works? Because I want to make sure that I understand how it works as a learner. I always center myself as a lifelong learner. I never pretend that I know everything, and I try to model that too. And so as a learner, I would like to see what you're doing and how your kids are responding to it, because kids are always first, right? And so I want to see how they're responding to it and what we can do to work as partners in this. And so I would kind of approach it from that angle.
So what I'm hearing is with the aggressive resistor, you start by acknowledging their expertise.
Yes.
You let them talk about the things they know, because probably they're saying, I don't need your help. So start with, and when they feel like, oh, this person's really listening to me, maybe we can get in the door. Also, the aggressive resistance could come from fear.
It could come from fear.
And
Absolutely.
So if people feel safe with you, then they can start to talk about their fears. Really interesting. So passive aggressive resistor, let me see what that would sound like. I'm trying to think of people we've worked with. So they might say, well, I'm pretty busy, but I might dip my toe into this just a tiny bit, But could you come in and I've got these 3 kids. Could you come in and watch these 3 kids for me and work with them while I'm teaching? That would actually be more helpful than anything you can teach me. Maybe is that the passive aggressive approach?
That's the passive aggressive approach. And they always make promises like next week or after Thanksgiving, I'll be free and you could come in then. And then you go in after Thanksgiving. And it's like, okay, well, give me until next week. But you think you're going to really work with them because they've shown interest and they really seem to be zealous about what you're going to do, but then it never comes to fruition. Right. And so when you're working with a teacher who is demonstrating passive aggressive resistance, the best thing that I do is I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm hounding them, but I make sure that they know I'm forever present. So, I'll walk by the classroom and I'll wave, or I'll stop in and I will circulate around the students, because sometimes they don't want that attention on them. And I ease my way in there. It's not to say that it's going to be easy. And it takes a little bravery on the part of the coach to do that. Because when you are not wanted, then you have to kind of, okay, how can I make myself feel wanted and needed? There was even a case where, cardinal sin number 1, don't make copies, but Melanie was making copies to get in that room, so just finding those little tricks and techniques to get in there. But yeah, they will say that they're interested and they're always making promises that they're going to do what you've planned for them to do, but it doesn't come to be.
And so I'm guessing, maybe I've got this wrong, but I'm guessing maybe a part of that would be to blame you for the fact that they're not meeting you.
Yeah.
They put it back on you sometimes.
Yeah. Deflection. Some of that is that, I've come to your office and you weren't there. Right. Okay. Or I emailed you. Did you get my email? I did. And I responded. Did you get my response? So
So with the passive aggressive resistors, it's really about being persistent in a respectful
yeah,
way. That the
yeah,
yes of it.
yeah.
And then okay, how about passive? You you meet this teacher.
Mm-hmm.
They say, I'm guessing, correct me if I've got it wrong, but they say, well, I'm interested in coaching, and you set appointments. They don't come to appointments.
Mm-hmm.
They don't respond to your email. As you said, they ultimately they say yes and then they ghost you. That's
Yes,
the way.
that's exactly right. They will even, you know, I don't want to say pretend to be because, maybe it is genuine, but they
Right.
will approach you and say, you know what, I really need help on unit 2 of the science lesson.
Mm.
Can you come in next week at 2:00? Well, yes, let me write you in. And then you get there and it's like something always happens. Like, oh, it's not a good time today. Little Johnny had to go home. It was an emergency.
Mm.
There's always something, but then they'll come back around and be like, hey, can you come back? And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? So that is that passive resistance. They agree to everything. But then when it's time to put the foot to the pedal, it's not happening.
Right. See, I like these Detroit car metaphors. We got to get the car in
Yeah,
there. Put the foot
that's right.
pedal to the metal. So how do you deal with a passive resistor? What have you learned to do?
So what I've learned to do is, and I'm saying this, but I'm not saying that this is the universal thing that people should
Right.
do. But sometimes you have to coach from afar, coach from
Mm.
a distance. So
Mm.
some people really have to see you in action before they act. And
Mm.
if you're new in a school or a building, it might take more than a year to do that because you're building relationships and all of those types of things. So what I like to do is I like to work around, and this is with any of these aggressive behaviors, these resistant behaviors. I like to work around people and show them what I can do, and word of mouth travels.
Mm.
When they get with their peers in the groups that they meet up in, however they meet, they talk. And they know that, oh, well, yeah, I worked with Melanie and she gave me some really good tips. And, she helped me brainstorm the outline of my units and she helped me do this. And so when people start to hear that, these resistant behaviors, then they come around. And I found that to be true in so many situations that I've
Mm.
coached in, is that they have to see you walk your walk first
Mm.
before they will open up and trust you.
Oh, that's such a good insight. Word does travel fast. When I first started out presenting in schools, I presented stuff from the University of Kansas. Did a lot of research on teaching, and so I realized there's real power in one-to-one. So I'd meet people one-to-one the day before the workshop, and then I would tailor the workshop based on what I heard in the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person who comes in and says, "I don't see why I have to talk to you. What's the point of being here? I mean, like I'm busy. I don't need to be here." And I'll say, "Well, you don't have to be here. I just want to tailor my workshop tomorrow to what you're doing. And I thought it'd be good to listen to you and ask you about your challenges so I can make it more relevant." I said, "But you really don't have to be here. But if you don't mind." And then I have a big bowl of Hershey's Kisses. And I said, "Would you like some chocolate?" And then they talk for a while and then they leave and they're kind of happy and they got a handful of chocolate. And then the next person comes in and says, "I think this is against the collective bargaining agreement. I don't think I should have to be here. I shouldn't be forced to be here." And I say, "Well, you're not forced to be here. You can be here if you want to. You don't have to be here. But what I want to do is I want to learn about you and what you're dealing with so that what I do tomorrow really speaks to you and it's not something that's irrelevant. And do you want some chocolate?" And then the next person comes in and says, "I hear you giving away chocolate in here." Like it only took two people and word travels really quickly. Word's
That's
out.
right. And it's
So,
something about that magic. It's something magic in chocolate. And those Hershey Kisses, dark chocolate, the
right.
purple wrapper. Yes.
Well, it's not chocolate if it's dark chocolate. In my humble Canadian opinion, that's not true. But I respect your opinion to have dark chocolate. My wife is in your camp. Well, given all this experience you've had with coaching and working, and what is a lesson you think all coaches need to learn?
I think the number one lesson is, and I think I've said this before, is to not take things personally. And I know you're going to have to grow a thick skin, and that thick skin might not come overnight. It may take some experiences for you to have in order to develop your tough skin.
Mm.
But it can be done, because one thing about coaching is that you're a representative of so many different entities. You're a representative of the school culture itself. You're a representative of the district leadership team in most cases. Depending on your role, you might be a liaison with the state educational agency. So you're a liaison and you're a representative on many levels. And so you're going to get things coming from you at every direction. My best advice is for you to form relationships with other coaches. As Jim said earlier, coaching is pretty siloed, and you might be the only coach in your building. And depending on the size of your district, you might be the only coach there. But you have to make sure that you reach out to your peers and get some support from your peers, fellow coaches, and lean into them to build your resiliency, to build your tough skin. So I know that it's difficult at first because you go in wholeheartedly and you're thinking that I'm going to make a difference, and you are. It's just that sometimes it might take a little longer for you to make a difference because of other people and their feelings around you. So developing that tough skin and developing a sense of, I can take it, it's not against me personally, I think will help you in the long run and go a long way.
That's such a good insight. It seems to me, as I'm listening, two parts. So one thing is, this just comes because I've been thinking about this and writing about this recently, but the challenge of leadership, and we're all leaders, whatever our role might be in school, but the challenge of leadership is to stay resilient without losing your compassion.
Yes.
And if you take everything personally and it eats you up, you're going to burn out. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you don't want to stop having empathy for the teachers. You want to see the world through their eyes. Mm-hmm. So you have to do both those things at the same time. Sort of protect who you are and have empathy for the person, to see them compassionately. And then the second thing I've been thinking a lot about is, at the risk of sounding cliche, like purpose. Mm-hmm. If you keep going back to why am I here? What's the purpose that drives my work? And then it's not personal. It's like, I'm just trying to be the best I can be, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do what's best for kids. And people are complicated. And if they're not liking me, it's not me that's the problem. It's their issues they're working on. My focus is on what I'm going to do for kids. If we can stay focused, this is easier said than done, though. In the moment, we had a person in Wyoming once tell me, this person came up to me and said, "You too shall pass." It's kind of a dark metaphysical thing to say, but any rate, and then the last thing I'd say, just to echo what you said, is on your own, coaching can be pretty lonely because you're not a principal, you're not a teacher, and there's really no one like you. So to have your people, have your community of other people that you can connect with, and you can go to them and say, have you got any advice on this situation? Here's what I'm dealing with. We found it was really, really critical for people to have that team of people to go back to. So I'm with you all the way. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've got a final question I ask everybody who's a coach. And the question is, what are three, it doesn't have to be three, it could be one or two or three or four, but what are a few really practical questions, moves, ideas you'd like to share about coaching?
The first thing I like to share is something I hold near and dear to me, because I still have to keep this at top of mind even after all of these years of coaching, is to go slow to go fast. Go slow to go fast. You see where you want to be. You see your desired result. But right now you're living in this present. And so it's going to take some time to get from here all the way there. And so if you set up everything in the beginning, you lay your foundation down. If you're new to a building, those foundational pieces like building relationship trust and being visible in the building, all of those good things we know about coaching, being persistent without being overwhelming, all of those good things, when you intentionally build those blocks at the beginning, then your coaching work will skyrocket. So go slow and be intentional on building your coaching foundation and building those relationships so that you can go fast at the end. So that's one of my things I want you to take away. Another one is to have 3 or 4 good coaching tools at your ready. And it depends on what you're doing. So we know that coaching has all of these roles. You're a coach, but you're also an instructional specialist, and you're a resource provider, catalyst for change. You're all of these things. So what are those things that you do most? When I first became a coach, I was heavily involved in creating professional development opportunities. So I had those tools at my side. If you're heavily involved in coaching cycles, have some good coaching cycle tools that you go to all the time instead of reinventing the wheel and making these tools up yourself. There are so many tools that you can use for coaching cycles or for whatever you're doing, observations or whatever. Have those 3 or 4 tools at your ready so that you won't spend time trying to figure out how to capture certain notes. So having those tools at your ready. And the last thing I want to say, and we touched on this, is to make sure you're building your capacity by building your network. Building your network both internally and externally. What I mean by an internal network are those people in your school or your district. So building your network of counselors, because all of these human resources will help you in one way or another. The social workers, the psychologists, all of these other roles in the school, be connected with these people because they have loads of information that can help you in your coaching work. So that's your internal network you want to build. And you also want to build your external network with going to conferences like this one, the TLC conference, and Facebook groups for instructional coaches. Those groups have so much information. Pop a question in a group and you will have an answer before you know it. You will never be alone with your coaching conundrum if you have an external group of peers that you can tap into and lean into whenever you're having a coaching problem or you need a coaching idea. There are so many groups that I've seen like, hey, it's the beginning of school. What presentation do you have already ready? And there it is. And so just building your capacity both internally and externally will help you as well.
I love that all of those ideas that you were talking about, go slow to go fast. A friend of mine just said this to me yesterday. He said, if you find yourself going around in circles, it's probably because you're cutting corners. So that's a pretty good justification for go slow to go fast. Mm-hmm. Anything else you'd like to share, Melanie?
Well, I would also like to share that attending my conference, my session at the conference is going to be super valuable. So make sure you are there. And I also like to say, if you are on Instagram, please follow me at Literacy at Work. I have a lot of great stuff there. I have fun. It's not all work and stuff. I have fun on my Instagram account. So follow me there. And I'm also on Facebook, and that's where you'll get the more formal Melanie on Facebook. But on Instagram, you'll get all my fun stuff too.
I think the fun one's the one I want to know. So basically, it's going to be, your presentation is going to be 45 ways to coach resistant teachers. Mm-hmm. It's going to be standing room only. I'm promising you. Standing room only. I promise you it will. Yes. Melanie, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to New Orleans, and I'm so grateful for all you shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. I'm looking forward to it as well.
All right.